Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ren,
And I'm Jen.
and this is our second chat. And so we've decided to do this weekly, and we've also decided to come up with a proper name for our little chats, which is Jen and Ren's Coach for the Future chat room.
Yeah, we decided to go for that because we both are, like you've seen from last time, really passionate about coaching young people, particularly. And we really believe in the power of changing that mindset from a really younger age than we currently do. And maybe also bringing these tools and these possibilities into education, maybe in the future. So, yeah, Coach for the Future made sense.
Yeah. And today we're going to be sharing the 10 things that we wish we knew going into university.
Ooh,
We've each come
exciting.
up with some short lists of our own, and we're going to be talking about them to hopefully help the listeners out there to get a good idea of what it might be like when they're entering university, or if you have already entered university, you might notice that you've been experiencing some of these things too, and you're not alone. So we hope that it helps.
And also, if you have your own and you want to share, please feel free to comment and let us know as well. And if there are any things that you ever want us to talk about in the future chats, just drop it just as a comment or an email. And our emails are in the comment section below as well. So, okay. So, what are the things that we wish we knew before starting uni? I think for me, the first big thing was to understand exactly why I was doing what I was doing. I know it sounds obvious, but it's actually not that obvious. We constantly think about what we want to do next, and that's kind of what we started talking about last time in our last chat. And I think we never stop and actually wonder, why are we doing what we're doing? And is it really something that I really want to be doing? And if so, why do I want to do it? What's this force that's pushing me to do this? Is it coming from a good place? Is it coming from a bad place? Is it coming from somebody else rather than me? So I think one of the big things to me was to just stop. And I didn't do that, to be clear. I thought I knew, but that's something I wish I had done, was to take some time to really focus about what I really loved, why I loved it, why I was focused on doing this type of thing. So I did law, for example, which was very specific, very committing in terms of like time and money, a lot of hard work. So it would have been nice maybe if I had stopped and thought about it before I got on this big conveyor belt that is the law degree and then the law career. I don't regret it, to be clear, but I did end up doing something completely different. So yeah, my big tip would be stop, have a think about the reasons why you're doing what you're doing. What matters to you in life? What do you see yourself doing day in and day out with fun, with a smile on your face? Something that you want to learn about without even, without forcing yourself to. Something you just love to read about, love to know about, love to become better at. And see if what your major, what you call it in Canada, but if your degree is actually in line with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so really like taking a moment to sit down and kind of hash out, okay, why am I doing this? And not falling back to the prescribed answer of, oh, it's to get an education, it's because whatever everyone else is doing. But to really, really ask yourself, like, because it's okay to come up with a different answer or to have parts of yourself that are unsure about it. Yeah, so do some self-reflection, some
Yeah.
journaling, or talk to people with different experiences, that they went to university, they didn't go to university, and see what sits well within yourself. And don't listen to your parents necessarily.
I
You're
was
an
going
adult
to
now,
say,
technically,
I
so
was going to say, that's what I mentioned when I said, who am I doing this for? You're doing this
yeah,
for you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're doing it for you, then you need to know why you're doing it and to
yeah,
be sure that you're doing it for you. Because the
yeah,
answer to the why might be, oh, because my parents told me so, or because I'm scared I won't get a stable job, or because I'm scared often and I'm scared of the future. And so therefore I'm going to do this kind of obvious, easy degree, or difficult, but at least easy in the sense that it's the obvious, easy route to a career that seems stable, without actually having an idea whether it's actually something that works for you. And that's, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters. So yeah, I think it's never wasted time to take that time.
Yeah. And this kind of leads in to the next one. So let's say that you have chosen your degree or your major, and then you realize going into university that maybe you made a mistake in choosing it, then that's okay because you're allowed to change your major. And this was something that I didn't really understand when I was in high school applying to universities. When you go through the application process, you have to indicate which program you want to be a part of. And, there's all these terms like faculties, programs, departments, majors, minors, and it can be very overwhelming. Like a lot of my friends had older siblings who kind of explained all of this to them, but I'm an only child, and I didn't really have many people in my family either to really ask to clarify these terms and to understand what the difference was between everything and what I was actually applying into as a program or a major. So I just kind of like kind of like went in blindly. But the great thing is that you can change it once you're registered, once you've even started attending courses. Even if you're halfway through the semester, you can go to an academic advisor and you can change anything you need to so that you're actually on the right track. If you realize that, oh, I should have taken a different minor to complement my major, or I want to switch my program from a B of A to a B of SC. Because some programs have the option of doing arts or science. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So yeah, just get your foot into the door first, and then you can figure out the details once you're there on campus physically and able to talk to an advisor.
Absolutely, and actually that reminds me that although the system is different in the UK, you can change, and I think that's lovely what you said as well, that freedom of actually just don't putting so much pressure on yourself. That was another one of the things that we mentioned last week, and it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine that you don't know everything. No one knows. That's why I have a lot of my clients who end up doing career changes after 15 years in an industry. There's no shame in that. That's a great thing. We're not the same person we were 10 years ago necessarily either. So it's absolutely fine to change and actually listen to yourself, and just go ahead with it. The scariest thing is just deciding you want to change, but actually the change itself isn't.
Yeah.
It's often just you deciding that that's what you want to do, the
Yeah.
hurdle to get over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I changed halfway through my first year, actually. And I didn't even know what I wanted to change into. So I went in as an English major. After the first um, lesson or the first class that I went into of my second semester after the winter break, I walked in, and this was the required course for my English degree. I walked into the classroom. Um, I took one look around. I think I spent maybe 5 minutes listening to the teacher
Yeah.
talk. And then I was like, nope, this isn't happening. I packed up my stuff. I left the room. I booked an appointment with an advisor. And I said, yeah, I have no idea what I want to take, but I know I definitely don't want to waste my time with this English major anymore. Not that English majors are a waste. I'm not saying that, but just for me, it just wasn't fitting well anymore with what I wanted as an experience. So I actually switched into general studies, and I took an extra course. So I was taking 6 courses for my second semester, so that I could really get a wide array of everything. I took like sciences and fine arts, and I even took like a dance class, and like just like all over the place. And then my second year going in, I gave myself that time. I said, I'll just have fun. I'll take the summer to think about it. And then as I return in the fall, I will settle on a major. And then that's what I did. And I was very, very happy with the major that I ended up sticking with. So
That's really amazing. And I mean, the system in the UK is a little bit more complicated in the sense that I think you have to actually specialize a little bit more than that. And we don't have quite majors and minors in the same way. But it's still, the principle is still the same. You absolutely can go and ask for help, talk to the people, and yeah, don't don't worry. I mean, like I said, the hardest thing is deciding that you want to change. If you feel that it's wrong for you, then talk about it and see what you
Yeah.
can do about it, because the actual change is often much easier than we think.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not locked in.
Exactly, and that kind of leads me to the other point. So the third point that we're going to make about what we'd like to know before going into uni, and that was about just enjoying the experience. That actually, just use it as a life experience. You know, we kind of separate our careers from life. We think, oh, this, you know, there's a big cake, and half of it's the career, and the other half is life. And actually, you know, career is just part of life, in the same way as uni is a part of life. So it's about, you know, being you in all of those areas of your life and figuring out who that you is. And university is the same thing. It's an environment where you get to figure out who you are in that environment, who you want to be, and what excites you. So it's a time to experiment and also just enjoy the process of learning something, having, you know, the freedom to, that's why it's important to choose something you love. And if you don't like it, change it, because the whole point is that you kind of enjoy learning. So whatever it is, try and enjoy the actual learning process. And you know, I know there's the next exam, but I kind of focused a lot on just the next exam. And I feel like some of the beauty of just being able to spend some of my time learning something I like, that would have been enough. And I think the reason why I did that was potentially because law wasn't actually something I really liked. It was more something I felt I had to do, and it had to be difficult. And so I wasn't actually passionate about it. So I
Yeah.
guess it's about really finding that thing that makes you want to learn and then enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Um, the I think so what you said about, you know, it's not just about the next exam and the next
Yeah.
exam. And the so something what one person told me this when I was a student, and it really helped me see my experience as a student in university as what you're describing about, like, enjoying it. And they said to me, being a student right now is your job. So it's not about getting the job. It's not, you're not going to school to get a job. Your job is being a student. So enjoy the studies, focus on your studies, work hard, but don't think of it in terms of this is just like a hurdle that I have to get past
Yeah.
to get to the other side
Yeah.
where my true adult life begins. Like, no, like
You're living it now.
this is just another part of your life,
Yeah.
you know, and it can be really, really fun.
And we're so lucky to have, I mean, I think in Western culture, we're so lucky to have this possibility, you know, to actually study and do these things that we want to do. And it's good to sort of take it up and actually like, enjoy it and really see it as an opportunity. And I think I didn't always appreciate that enough. I kind of saw it, yes, like you said, as something that in order to, rather than something to actually in itself.
Yeah,
And I think that's a really important
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And and in terms of, you know, enjoying it, that also means trying new things, which kind of goes into the next one that I wanted to share was, you know, like, when you leave high school, and, you know, even if you're staying in the same city or the same town to go to university, and there's a lot of your high school cohorts that also go there, but you're still going to be meeting people from other provinces or other countries, and you're going to start interacting with new things and new people that you never thought you would, and just be open-minded to it. Like, you will, I mean, and it's a little bit sad, this is a little bit of a sad one, but it's important, I think, to be open-minded to it, that you will lose contact with friends, who people that you thought you would never lose contact with, but that's okay, because you're going to create friendships with people you never imagined you would meet or become friends with in the first place. But it's all part of your growth and development as you leave childhood or you leave your teens and you enter into your adult life. And it can be very rewarding when you allow yourself to remain open to new things, new activities, new people, and you're not trying to retain the same teenage identity or ego that you had from your youth. So yeah, be open-minded and really embrace change, and new people.
Yeah, let yourself grow, I guess. It's what we're saying, it's an opportunity, isn't it? So it's an opportunity to just let yourself see who you are, see who you were, and you might be the same person you were in high school, you might not. You
Yeah.
might want to experiment being, more you, maybe, because hopefully, because you're no longer with your parents, or you no longer have, and so it's the opportunity to actually be you,
Hmm.
really, really freely you. And I'd say really embrace that. That's such an amazing freedom. And it's something you will need your whole life. It doesn't change, it doesn't go away, but it's about, I think, holding on to that as well, holding on to staying yourself, whatever happens. And I think that's a great time to do that. And I think that the thing that I was going to say about that as well, so that's the other point I was going to say was, what uni's not for everyone, and it's okay that it's not for everyone, right?
Hmm.
If you are the you that actually, you thought university was for you, or your parents wanted you to go, and actually it turns out it's just not, it's fine. It's fine. I know
Hmm.
so many people who haven't ever gone to university. Some people have never gone to beyond, 16 years old in education, and are now managers of big companies. It's fine. It's
Hmm.
about finding what is right for you. So see it as an experience. Either
Hmm.
it is your type of learning, or it's not your type of learning. And that might also be an option. There are loads of other ways of learning, of getting the experience you need, of even taking a break. Sometimes even a gap year or something like that can really help. You
Hmm.
learn a lot of things about yourself. And even if you don't learn about what you want to do, that's fine, as long as you learn about yourself a bit more, about the things that you enjoy, the things that you love, and that will help you then decide what you're going to do next.
Yeah. Yeah, I took a gap year after high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Simply because, yeah, I think I mentioned this before. I just didn't want to rush into it. Um, I realized that if I, yeah, like I wasn't in a rush to finish a degree, I guess. Like I knew that if I don't take a gap year now, then I'll probably just continue being in school until I get a job, and then I'll never have that year of freedom. And I think that that freedom, it comes at a cost. Not necessarily the gap year part, but I just mean like freedom in general. When you leave home, and you're used to having adult supervision, or not even like overbearing supervision, but just like an adult nearby who kind of monitors your whereabouts and your activities, your comings and goings. Um,
Your
and then
food.
you leave that, and you're on your own, because many of us, we leave the city or the town that we grew up in to go to school. The freedom is important to experience, but there's you also need to learn very quickly how to self manage, and how to be free responsibly, I guess, without like, which is my next one about about like that self management
Yeah,
of
I
like
can see that.
because one thing that, like, I was fairly good at keeping track of my responsibilities as a teenager, and I was a good student. But when I started in university, I moved across Canada, went from Fredericton, New Brunswick, all the way to Calgary, Alberta. I lived in the dorms, and I um, I did well, but I quickly noticed that the timetable for courses, I would only have maybe like 5 or 10
Yeah.
hours at the most where I was actually required to be present,
Mhm.
in a classroom. And even then, I wasn't actually required to be present. It was just like strongly recommended. And I would see a lot of students who lived in the dorms with me who would take advantage of that, or not even necessarily take advantage, but just kind of with this mindset of, oh, I don't have to go to class.
Yeah.
I can just stay at home and read the textbook. And I'm not talking about slackers. I'm still talking about students who were like good students, right? Like students who had good grades, who had, a great,
Work ethic.
extracurriculars. What do you call those, transcripts, right? But it was just because of the sudden freedom that they really like enjoyed that freedom of doing what they wanted when they wanted, and not really reminding themselves that they had to self-govern, right? You have to be your own parent when you leave home. And it takes some time
That's
for
the
some
only thing about,
teenagers.
that's the definition of being an adult. That's the only thing that makes the difference between being an
Yeah,
adult and not an adult, is
yeah.
literally you have to be your own parent.
And it
It's very well
you
put.
know, and no one's expecting you to learn it just overnight. I mean, it takes practice to learn to be your own parent. But it's important that that you realize it, right? And that you, so if you start to see yourself, you know, like not going to class and just kind of being carefree, it's like, okay, like that's great that you're having fun, but just remember, like you know, you did still choose to go to school, so try to yeah, like try out a little bit of self-discipline here and there at least, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
like
I mean,
don't be
that's,
too free.
I think that's why it's so important to do. I love that. And I want to hear about an experience that's made you say this. Definitely. But one thing that makes me think about is how important it is to therefore choose something you actually care about, something you actually want to learn as a topic and as a degree. Because if you do actually do something you like, you will feel that motivation, and you won't want to be wasting it. You will go to want to hear the teachers talk about it because you're actually interested in it. And I think that's a really important thing. It's another motivation, and that's why the why about how you're choosing it for me was so important. Is making sure, because
Mhm.
if the why is just, oh well, it's a stepping stone, and it's a stepping stone to potentially, you know, having a stable career that's made me feel reassured and make my parents feel reassured, it's not very motivating. When you've been given all this freedom, suddenly you think, ah, well, you know, I don't really like it, and I can always make up for it in year 2 or 3, and you know, and it's not
Yeah,
motivating. And then you have to
yeah,
live your life like that. No, just
yeah,
pick something you love, and then do it you'll do it and
yeah,
have fun, and you'll
yeah,
have all the fun you want, and you'll be able to become your own parent without even realizing it. So I think
yeah.
that's why for me that's the key to everything. And I definitely want to know a story. Yeah. Lauren.
There it was just like, there was no like one big story. It was just because you know, living in a dorm, I was living in a co-ed dorm, and my floor was just very energetic. We got along. Everyone in all the different wings on our floor got along fairly well. And so that just turned into like 4 nights of partying every week for the first semester, right? Like
Oh.
Wednesdays we'd do wings on the at the campus bar. Thursday we'd go for drinks at an Irish pub. Friday we'd go to the club. Saturday we'd go to the club. And then Sunday would be like usually just like in the common room, like ordering pizza together, watching sports. So Monday and Tuesday were the only nights when we weren't out partying and spending money on wings and beer and stuff. And I guess that's the other thing, is it can get very
It's
expensive.
true.
But you know, but it's fun. Like it's really important to have that fun and to have that freedom. But just understand that it can't last forever, and everything in moderation really is the key. So maybe not partying 4 nights or 5 nights a week, but everything in moderation. And yeah, so my first semester
Because you
was
get to do
great.
everything.
it was it was really really fun. But again, because I was fairly mature, and I, again, as I said, I took a year off, right? So I
Yeah.
really knew that I wanted to be in university. So I had a little bit more maturity than some of the other people living in the dorm with me, and I saw the results of the other students who
Mm.
maybe they came from homes that were much stricter than mine, and they were 17, right, whereas I was 19. And those 2 years make a huge difference in maturity level, especially if it's between a woman and a man, right, a young man. So yeah, and I would just see like the consequences of those kinds of decisions. um, I mean, yeah, like some can pull themselves together and make it through the year. Others realize, okay, yeah, university isn't like, I'm not ready for university, or maybe I'll go to community college instead. And that's fine. Okay. There's no judgment for switching. But it's just because they were young they didn't know why they went into university, maybe again, like you were talking about, Jen, like just with, maybe they were following their parents guides,
Yeah.
or
And I think
guidelines or
that's key,
expectation,
really.
like, so, having that freedom, learning to self-manage. Another part of that is being in the being prepared for how your professors will handle the courses compared to the teachers who handled courses. It's very different. So when you're in high school or secondary school, um, teachers will handhold you, and you don't even really realize how much you're being handholded until you enter university, because um, they won't the professors, they won't follow up with you. I think, as I mentioned earlier about, it's not required for you to attend every class or every lecture, and they will not follow up on you. And if even if you have a valid excuse for not being able to show up, or for missing an exam, or for missing the deadline of an essay, like, and I mean like valid, like let's say you're in the ER overnight, or someone in your family passed away, it doesn't matter. Your professors, they won't care. I mean, they'll care on a personal level. They'll send you their
Yeah.
condolences, but they won't give you an extension. Especially in year one and year two, they won't make any exceptions for you, because they're dealing with hundreds, thousands of students who are doing the exact same thing. So, once you move up, by year three, year four, when you've built a relationship with your professors, it's a different story when they know you personally by name. But during the first year, a lot of students feel that shock of like, oh, my professors, they're not human. They don't understand what I'm going through. And they make it so difficult. They think that we can handle all this stuff, and they don't. Or my professor didn't tell me that it was due today. Or, it's like, well, like, you're an adult, so you have to check the curriculum that your teacher gave you, or your professor gave you. You have to follow up on these things yourself. Your professor is not going to remind you. They're not going to send emails
Yeah.
with extra resources or anything. Like, it's just, here the lecture at this time, here's the chapter of the textbook you have to read, and show up for the exam, and that's it. So yeah, so that's part of the self-management of, taking responsibility for being your own parent and following up on your responsibilities for yourself.
I think
Yeah.
that's actually quite an important point, isn't it? And because it's about also, um, it's what we were saying, what you were saying earlier about the shock between what you're used to in university, in high school, and what you get in university, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
And you don't realize it in high school. You don't realize how easy it is. Um, because yeah, like, and I'm not really sure why teachers are so good at that, like following up with students. And I guess because they're teachers, they care, and they want to encourage all their students and help them achieve and succeed and everything. But by the time you get to university, there's unfortunately no time for your professors to be there in that
and
capacity.
I think
So
it's also because that's an entirely, they're not supposed to have the time. Like it's an entirely different thing. It's when you're no longer in school. You have now chosen, so you're not forced to be there anymore. You have
yeah,
chosen to be there, and so it's about taking ownership about what you've decided to do and ownership of your life. And I think
yeah,
that's a great and difficult thing.
yeah,
It's an amazing thing. It's the
yeah,
best thing one can do in life, is to take ownership for our life, and choose what we want to do and have the freedom to do something we want to do. But it also comes with the fact that we've got to do it,
yeah,
and somebody else isn't going to
yeah,
do it for us, I guess.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. And alongside that, another one that I wish I had been prepared for, because I kind of like had to learn it on the fly. And I think I saw others that were living with me in the dorm, because we would see each other
Yeah.
very regularly. Um, and I would see them suffer with this realization that even no matter how good you were as a student and how awesome your grades were as a student in secondary school, be prepared for your average to drop. And
Mm.
it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're not trying hard enough. It's just part of the system. It's the whole stepping stone into university, the competitiveness with all the other students, the expectations that your professors have, and it's also their job to mark you a lot tougher so that you really get into this mindset of, okay, this is what it takes, so that there you don't coast through university. Like, you have to work a little bit harder, and so you'll see that your grades will drop in the first year, but then that gives you the wherewithal to understand what you need to do for your second year, and then your grades will start going up again, as long as you are still committed.
That's funny because that's what happened to me, and I'm in France. Like it's a very, but it was. You're right. This first year is kind of, it's difficult for loads of things, but it is also in France particularly. It's a very competitive year because a lot of people basically in France anybody can apply to university, anybody can go to university. So it's not very, as long as you've had the baccalaureate, which is effectively what we call A levels in England, but as long as you've had your baccalaureate, you can go to university. The thing is, whether or not you're going to get the degree out of university, that's a very different question because you get 2,000 students in their first year. And by the end of the first year, you've probably got only 1,000 left. Right, and
Mhm.
there's only 500 or whatever who actually end up graduating. So the from that specific university where I went to, so you end up with the selection was done very differently, and
Mhm.
it was a huge shock for me that my marks went down so much, and
Mhm.
like you said, and it's difficult. You feel like, oh my gosh, you know what's going on with me? I got stupid suddenly. And like you said, it's not, it's just part of the process. It's just showing you where you're going to go, and if you continue and you just, it will get better and it will improve. So I think that's a very
Yeah.
important message actually.
Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. In the end, the whole uh the whole part of going to university is about, that those kinds of experiences, as we were talking about in the beginning of this chat, that you can enjoy it. You learn from your mistakes. You're growing. You're developing into an adult. So it's all part of it, I guess. Is what we're
Yeah, I mean it's the learning bit. I think for me what I'm, I really think I wish I had realized is how much I could have actually enjoyed what I was studying more. And I think if I had done a degree that was something that was really me in what it was, for example, if I'd chosen psychology instead of law, I think I would have. I worked really hard, but it always felt like I was pushing myself. It always felt like I had to, compromise. And whereas if I had done something that was really motivating for me, I think I would have done the partying and the studying, and I would have enjoyed both equally. And
Yeah.
that's something that I wish for all of you listening, that you can enjoy
Party
both.
hard, study hard.
Yeah, and enjoy both the same. If you're not enjoying what you're studying, then try and think about maybe finding something you actually fancy, that's something you want to turn up to the lessons for. And it's fine, it's not the one you've chosen. So I guess we've made that point, but it's kind of a big point for both of us, clearly.
Yeah.
So what was the other point that we wanted to say on that?
So we mentioned experiment, take time off. You
Yeah.
had also mentioned about hobbies.
Yes, I said don't forget your hobbies, and I think that's so important, because for me, law at the time took over. It literally, particularly because of the choice of that specific degree, maybe, and in the UK and in France, where I did it in France, particularly, it's quite head on, it's like it's really focused on it from the very beginning. So when you're 17, 18 years old, you start off with your law degree. It's very specialized from the beginning, so you don't have any other way out. At least it feels like it. Obviously, I could have, but I didn't think about it at the time. And it just took over all of my time and energy. That, and obviously the few social things that I did do, because obviously it is university and it's important you do it. And I kind of forgot about all the things I was passionate about, all the other things like photography, like dancing, like, people, psychology, things that I really, really loved doing. And it was partly because in France, for example, we couldn't really combine degrees. So if I had if I had been able to do psychology and law, for example, it might have had a little bit more interest along it. I couldn't. In France, you actually couldn't do that. But one of the options I had was I could have gone to another country. For example, in England, it's possible to combine these two subjects. So that's also another thing I wanted just thought about earlier when we said change. You can also, like, you never think it's not possible. Because it's not
Right.
possible where you are doesn't mean it's not possible everywhere. And that's
Yeah.
another thing that I wish
Yeah.
I had known is actually look elsewhere, because you
Yeah.
might find your actual perfect thing. And
Yeah.
about the hobbies, for me, it was just stay connected with what you love, stay connected with what makes you you, and continue developing them. Like,
Mhm.
go to, try and share hobbies with the people around you. I know, how do you call them in Canada when you've got these kind of student, how do you call them? You go to the student fair. You see it in films all the time in America. But they go to
Oh,
these
like
fairs, and
student affairs?
yeah, and then but then you have these sort of hobbies that, they all kind of are part of this group, and they
Oh yeah, like clubs, like
clubs, they
extracurricular
go
clubs, and
extracurricular
yeah,
clubs and
yeah,
stuff like that. That's maybe my
yeah.
French side that didn't even have the word. Because in France we don't have that, for example. We don't have these clubs. And I think in countries where you don't, really you need to remember how important that is, because doing the things you love doing things that make you happy will actually put you in a better mood to be working, will put you in a more positive mindset, and will actually give you more options when it comes to it. And you'll see suddenly there'll be a contrast between, gosh, I love when I'm taking photos, I'm in this kind of mind state, I really can see it, I love the creativity in me. And then suddenly you might be feeling like, oh, actually my degree is my degree creative enough for me? Not
Mm,
I want to become a photographer necessarily, but is my degree creative enough for me?
mm,
That's why it's so important, is because it gives you that, it makes you realize and connect with the deep values that you have. For example, creativity. Definitely law wasn't creative enough for me.
mm.
And that suddenly, and that was obvious, but I
Yeah,
hadn't thought about it.
yeah.
So that's why
I
I'm saying it's important.
I remember. I think I went through this mindset when I, uh, moved cities and went to university. That um, my the hobbies or the activities that I had really engaged with as a teenager, I almost kind of said to myself, okay, now you're shifting gears and you're doing university.
Yeah.
So I stopped a lot of my hobbies. I replaced it with a lot more socialization, which I wasn't as into when I was a teenager. Um, but in the end, the hobbies had to come back into my life because, like you said, like it was really important that I included those passions into my daily, weekly kind of routine. But in terms of some of the hobbies, I had to think of other ways to integrate them because a lot of them would cost money that, my parents had supported me to do those things. So I had to think of other ways. So things like the dancing, because I was a huge dancer. So I would take the dance classes as part of my degree instead because I knew that it would be too expensive to take the classes from a local dance school.
Yeah, so you
Other
included
things,
it in what you were studying. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. Other things like I don't know, like I was really into painting and drawing. I think I did a lot less of that during my first degree. Um, but yeah, I mean like just like trying to think of cheaper ways of doing it so that you can still have it in your life. Whether that's like you share supplies with another person or you join an art club instead so that like you're you're not having to you know buy yourself all of this equipment plus you're traveling with that equipment across
Yeah.
Canada or across your home country or whatever, like so yeah, look for other ways of keeping those hobbies close to you.
Yeah,
um
I love that idea. I mean, that's kind of, I did do a little bit of that. It makes me think, when I was kind of at university at lunchtime, sometimes I'd go and take some photos, and it's quite hard to remember to do those things.
yeah,
And one question that came to me when you were asking is, how did that actually impact you? Like, continuing your hobbies, how did that impact you, like, during your studies and today?
yeah. So the dancing, that was super important for me to continue. It was almost like being a dancer was part of my identity, and it was really, really difficult for me to see myself as someone who wasn't a dancer. And I had, because I was like semi-professional trained, doing ballet exams. So it was like a core part of my identity. So the idea of not being able to do that anymore would have been very earth-shattering and very, very difficult for my ego and like how I viewed myself and how I appreciated myself. So it was actually like maybe more of like a crutch that I had to continue to dance and keep it in my life. Now, since leaving that degree, since graduating from that degree and moving, when I moved into Hamilton, where I live now, to do my second degree, um, I was really trying to grow up, so to speak, and move away from this identity of being a dancer, to the point where I stopped taking, and I really lost it, and then it affected my. It did. It wasn't the only factor that affected my mental health, but it was definitely. I think if I had continued dancing and even, again, because taking dance classes can be expensive, but just looking for other opportunities to do that, I think it would have maybe helped prevent some of the severity of my depression. Although, yeah, and that was actually like the first thing that I did. Once I started seeing the signs of my mental health,
Yeah.
I immediately signed myself up for some dance classes, despite it being like such a huge cost. But I realized that it was worth it. For me, uh, financially, it was worth it in the end. So, and as I started going back to dance classes, I did see an improvement. I mean, along with a lot of other things, obviously, that I had to do to help myself. But going back to that activity, but it was no longer something like that I needed to associate with myself as part of my identity anymore. It
It was
was
just something
literally
that made you
just
happy.
because it was like within me
Yeah.
as part of my being that I needed to dance. I just, so now I this might be a little embarrassing, but because I'm no longer signed up for classes because of COVID, and it's been very difficult for that. So I will just dance by myself in my kitchen, in my living room, in my bedroom, literally anywhere I have space. I will make the time to have that moment with myself, block out an hour every now and then and just dance. Like
But
it
it's
might
so
sound a little
obvious
like
how much pleasure it gives you, when you talk about it. It's really obvious.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I've got
Yeah.
I've got a similar story as well with dancing actually, and it does have a huge impact on your mental health. Doing something you love. Hobbies are not just hobbies; they're not just things you do on the side to fill in your time and because they're healthy things to do. No, they're things that sometimes we really, really need because they're part of us, And if we love something and it brings us joy to do it, then it's not something unimportant. It's
Mhm.
something actually very, very important. And like I was saying earlier, your career isn't half the cake of the life, right? It's just a slice of life. And the idea is you need the rest, and it's not any less important. And
Yeah.
that's a really important thing to keep. And to return the question to myself in terms of the hobbies and how it impacted me as well now. Like, even if you're thinking about your career, even if you're thinking, oh, but my time is to focus on my career, but it actually does have an impact. Like I was saying earlier, all of my hobbies were creative. It should have maybe in my head, like, been like,
Yeah.
I need to do a profession where there is some creativeness in it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and if I had continued, maybe it would have,
Yeah.
but it didn't. And it didn't because I stopped them all. And I actually, in a while, you think, oh, I'll start them again later or once I get a job, etc. And the answer is you don't.
Yeah.
And then I forgot what I was passionate about. I forgot. I danced for 15 years and then I forgot that I loved dancing, and I
Yeah.
forgot that I loved all these other things.
Mhm.
It took a lot. It took me to go through 10 years in law and then a burnout completely to go to a coach and be like, I can't remember what I love.
Mm,
And it's such a sad place.
mm.
So really what I want for you guys is not to feel that, and like
Right.
us, like literally stay connected. That is just as important as everything else.
Yeah.
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 Oh, so there you go. So what if we had to summarize, are we got to the 10th, or do you have one?
Yeah, I think there was one more, but I think we kind of mentioned it more or less in the lines of freedom and self-management, yeah. So, and I don't want to end on a downer now. So this is such a nice way to end.
I think it is, isn't it? I mean, do you want to let's just go through like the 10 points then, if we had to summarize what we really said. So the first one for me was really clarify why you're doing the degree you're doing. Why, and you know, where does it come from? And if it doesn't come from you, question it. And if it does come from you, make sure it comes from the positive, hopeful you, the you that loves and is excited by the idea of what you're going to do rather than fear of the
Mhm,
future. So that's the big
mhm.
one, I'd say. What was
Yeah.
yours next one?
That you can change your
Yeah,
degree or your major along the way if
yeah.
you need to. There's no, no problem with that. It's quite easy to do, actually. You're not
Yeah,
locked.
and that the biggest thing is actually to realize and accept that you need to change it, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Actually changing it's much easier.
yeah,
The third one I had to say is just enjoy it. Just try and really, if you love what you're studying, then just let yourself enjoy the learning process. Don't just focus on the next exam and the next grade. Don't see it, spit what you said. Don't see it as a stepping stone, but seeing it as living the student. Like, and that's really it. That's your job right now, is to enjoy the learning and use that as a beneficial in itself, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we mentioned that uni is not for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So, if you're not enjoying it, then quit, it's okay. And that kind of led into the other thing, like about experimenting, take time off, like, um, yeah, again, you're not locked in.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
You're-
a very important bit. You are
yeah,
free. It's your life. You are
yeah,
free to be the author of your life.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
decide it and take the pen.
Yes, yes. But with that freedom, also learn how to self-manage yourself. That's really, really important.
Yeah,
So that you're still functioning as a member of society, like you're not um, losing track of all of your responsibilities as a now free adult out of
yeah.
your
It
parents'
will
home.
help you enjoy everything, all the experience, I guess, as well. Because I think there's a lot of people who are worried about not going to all the parties, because if they don't go, then people might not think that they're cool or something like that. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
having that as well. I mean, that's personal,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I think it's important to just be okay with you. If you don't fancy doing it, that's also fine. You don't have to go to every single thing.
yeah,
That's another thing that it was
yeah,
important for me.
yeah.
And you said as well about, I think you had said about the importance of realizing that you might lose certain friends and make new ones, and see it as an
Right.
opportunity for growth, really.
Yeah, so remain open-minded to embrace these new things and people that you'll encounter. Again, especially when if you're someone who's thinking of moving to a new country or a new city to go to school. Yeah, really be open-minded and embrace the differences and unfamiliarity
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And for me, the last one was the hobby one. I think it was to not forget about the hobbies, and not forget that it's more than just about your career, and it's about you as a person, and it's what you love. And that information, those hobbies provide you with information that's going to be not only helpful, like useful for you for your career, or to figure out what you want to do in life or what you want to continue, but also can be, like you said, part of your identity, and actually really have an impact on your well-being and your mental health. So it's so important to continue doing those things, and it's as important as everything else. Okay. Well, it was really lovely to have this chat with you today, Ren, and as always.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully that was helpful and insightful for you. If there's if you agree with anything that we said or disagree or have any other examples, particularly of party examples, I'd love to hear from them down in the comments, because this sounds amazing.
I
Because in
hope I'm
France
not
we
being
didn't
bad
have as much of that.
at
I love these ideas and these stories, and we're going to do another one on the 10 things that we would like to know before starting our career. And it's going to be a similar setup, scenario. Again, if you got comments or you want to share, just let us know, and we'll add them. So thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to subscribe if you're on our YouTube channels, and that you'll just get a little notification next time there's another video that comes out. And see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.